Commander Alan Mitchell wiped sweat from his brow as he stood in the waiting area outside the Galactic Council chamber. The massive space station hung in orbit around Centauri Prime, the neutral meeting ground for the 17 species that made up the Council. Through the viewport he could see Earth ships looking small and plain next to the gleaming vessels of other races. "Ready, Commander?" Admiral Frank Warren asked, adjusting his formal uniform. The older man's face showed no emotion, but his eyes revealed concern. Mitchell nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be, sir." Dr. Olivia Patel clutched her data tablet tightly. As Earth's lead weapons scientist, she had spent months preparing for this presentation. "They invited us here. They must see some value in what we offer," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Lieutenant Kelly Davis, the youngest member of their team, checked her reflection in a polished wall panel. "I still don't understand why we're showing them our military tech first. Couldn't we have started with medical advances or clean energy?" Warren shook his head. "The Council prioritizes defense capabilities. It's how they judge if a species is worth bringing into the fold." A soft chime sounded, and the massive doors slid open. A tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms gestured them forward. "The Galactic Council will see the Earth delegation now." Mitchell took a deep breath and led his team into a chamber so vast that it made Earth's United Nations look like a closet. 17 distinct alien species sat in rising tiers around a central platform. Some looked almost human, while others defied easy description. The air smelled of strange spices and ozone. High Counselor Marixian, a slender humanoid with silvery skin and eyes that changed color with her mood, stood to greet them. Her eyes currently showed a cool blue of formal politeness. "We welcome Earth's representatives," she said, her voice translated perfectly into English by the small devices in the human's ears. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel, only 30 Earth years ago, yet you seek to join our ancient alliance. This is ambitious." Mitchell stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, we thank the Council for this opportunity. We bring greetings and the hope of friendship." "Friendship begins with understanding," Marixian replied. "Please show us how Earth defends itself." Dr. Patel activated her tablet, and holographic displays lit up the center of the chamber. Detailed images of Earth's orbital defense platforms, warships, and weapon systems appeared, rotating slowly for all to see. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Mitchell noticed some beings leaning forward with interest, but others were making what he assumed were gestures of dismissal or even amusement. Ambassador Zix Tar of the Vexillian Dominion raised one of his translucent tentacles. He resembled a jellyfish that had decided to wear formal robes. "Clarification requested. These weapons still use physical projectiles? Metal objects propelled by chemical explosions?" Patel nodded. "Yes. Our main ship-to-ship weapons are railguns that fire tungsten rods at..." A sound like bubbling water interrupted her. It took Mitchell a moment to realize it was laughter coming from several council members. These primitive kinetic weapons still use chemical propellants. Zixtar's body pulsed with colored lights that the translator didn't bother interpreting. "Our young learn about such technologies in historical archives." Dr. Patel flushed but continued professionally. "We also have missiles with various warheads, including..." "Explosives?" asked a reptilian being from the upper tier. "You shoot containers of chemicals at each other and then detonate them?" This prompted more laughter. Mitchell felt his jaw tighten. He glanced at Warren, whose face remained impassive but whose knuckles had turned white where he gripped his own tablet. Patel switched the display to show Earth's more advanced weapons. "We also have laser systems for point defense, and we're developing plasma-based rudimentary energy weapons," interrupted a being made of what looked like living crystal. "Your lasers would barely penetrate our standard ship shielding." "Hi." Counselor Marixian raised a hand for quiet. Her eyes had shifted to a purple hue that Mitchell couldn't interpret. "Please continue, Dr. Patel," she said. For the next 20 minutes, Patel described Earth's defensive capabilities while enduring increasingly less subtle mockery. She explained their missile defense systems, orbital platforms, and ground-based lasers. With each new slide, the council members exchanged glances, or made dismissive gestures. Finally, she finished her presentation. The chamber fell quiet. Marixian spoke after a long pause. The Council appreciates your quaint presentation. However, for your protection and integration into galactic society, we recommend immediate disarmament and adoption of standard Council defensive systems. Mitchell stepped forward. With respect, High Counselor, Earth has developed these technologies over centuries of trial and error. They serve our needs well. Your needs within your single star system, perhaps, said a bulky being with gray skin who hadn't spoken before. But the galaxy holds dangers you cannot imagine. Your weapons would be useless against the threats we face regularly. We're open to learning and adapting, Mitchell replied, keeping his voice level despite his growing frustration. Learning, yes, good. Marixian's eyes shifted to green. We will provide educational materials on proper defense technologies. When you have studied them, perhaps you will understand why we find your presentation concerning. Ambassador Zixtar's body flashed with colors again. Perhaps we should show them our weapons so they understand the gap between us. He gestured, and new holograms appeared. Mitchell and his team watched in reluctant awe as images of sleek ships firing energy beams that cut through asteroids appeared. Other vessels created gravitational distortions that crushed targets without firing a single shot. Personal weapons that could disintegrate targets or freeze them in time fields. These are basic Council weapons, Zixtar explained, his translator, conveying unmistakable pride. Technology we share with all member species. Marixian nodded. For your own safety, we suggest you begin phasing out your antiquated systems immediately. Council engineers can assist with the transition. Mitchell felt his face grow hot. High Counselor, while we appreciate the offer, Earth sovereignty includes our right to maintain our own defense systems. The chamber grew quiet again. Marixian's eyes shifted to a dark orange. Of course, Commander, no one is forcing anything upon Earth. Her tone suggested otherwise. But understand that full Council membership requires certain standardizations. The meeting concluded shortly after, with promises of cultural and scientific exchanges to follow. As Mitchell and the Earth delegation were escorted from the ICE chamber, Lieutenant Davis whispered, "They don't understand. They haven't seen what our weapons can actually do." Mitchell smiled grimly. "And they haven't asked the right questions about how we survived 3 centuries of nearly destroying ourselves. Sometimes primitive can be effective." In the corridor, Admiral Warren pulled Mitchell aside. That went about as expected. "Sir, their arrogance works in our favor, Commander. They see our weapons and think they know everything about how we fight." Warren's eyes gleamed with an unexpected intensity. "But they don't understand that humanity's greatest weapon has never been our technology." "What is it then, sir?" "Our creativity under pressure. Our adaptability." Warren lowered his voice. "And the fact that we never ever show all our cards at once." Unknown to the Council, humanity had developed their seemingly outdated technology along unconventional paths after learning bitter lessons from countless wars. The Council's arrogance had prevented them from looking deeper, from understanding that human ingenuity often thrived under constraints. Meanwhile, on the edges of Council space, something dangerous was stirring, a threat the Council's sophisticated weapons had consistently failed to neutralize. 6 months passed since Earth's embarrassing introduction to the Galactic Council. The human delegation had returned home with technical manuals for proper defensive systems and thinly disguised demands for disarmament. Earth's leaders had smiled, thanked the Council politely, and then continued developing their own weapons in secret. Admiral Warren stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. "The Council thinks we're busy dismantling our railguns," he said, pointing to a holographic display of new weapon designs. "Meanwhile, we've improved their range by 30%. General Susan Reeves nodded with approval. "And what about Project Hammerfall?" "On schedule. Dr. Patel's team has successfully miniaturized the tungsten rod delivery system. We can now deploy kinetic strikes from ships half the size of our previous destroyers. Commander Mitchell, recently promoted for his diplomatic work with the Council, studied the weapon schematics with interest. The Council would still laugh at these if they saw them. Let them laugh, Warren replied. We're not building these to impress aliens. We're building them to work when needed. The meeting was interrupted when a young communications officer burst into the room. Sirs, urgent transmission from our embassy on Centauri Prime. The Council has called an emergency session. Mitchell exchanged glances with Warren. What's happened? Unknown, sir, but they've specifically requested Earth's presence. 20 hours later, Mitchell found himself back in the Galactic Council chamber. This time, however, the atmosphere was entirely different. Gone was the condescension and amusement. Instead, the chamber buzzed with fear and tension. High Counselor Marixian, her skin now a pale gray instead of silver and her eyes a worried yellow, called the session to order. Representatives of all Council worlds, we face a grave threat. 3 days ago, we lost contact with Outpost Gamma 9 in the Perseus Arm. Yesterday, we lost contact with colonies on Veltar and Proxima Centauri 2. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Today we received this final transmission from Veltar before all communication ceased. The central holographic display activated, showing a chaotic scene. A blue-skinned alien like the one who had escorted Mitchell's team 6 months ago was shouting into the camera. Behind him, other aliens ran in panic. They're inside the defenses. Energy shields failed completely. Weapons ineffective. They're in our minds, controlling. The alien suddenly stiffened, his 4 eyes widening. Then, speaking in a flat, emotionless voice, he said, "We are the Hive. Your technology is nothing against our evolution. Your minds are open to us. Your bodies will serve us." The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent for several long seconds. Marixian's voice trembled as she spoke again. Outpost Gamma 9 has fallen. Our phase cannons and quantum disruptors proved ineffective against their mental shielding. A reptilian council member rose from his seat. Have we confirmed it's the Hive Collective? They haven't been seen in this sector for 3 centuries. Confirmed, Marixian replied. Their silicon-based biology and psychic abilities match all historical records. As you know, the Hive was driven back in the last conflict but never defeated. They appear to have evolved new defenses against our energy weapons. Mitchell leaned toward his aide, Lieutenant Davis. What's this Hive they're talking about? Davis consulted her tablet, now linked to the Council's information network. Silicon-based organisms with powerful psychic abilities. They operate as a collective consciousness. Historical records show they've been encountered by the Council twice before. Both times the Council eventually drove them back but couldn't defeat them completely. Mitchell nodded and returned his attention to the proceedings, which had devolved into panicked arguments. Council races were pointing fingers, blaming each other for inadequate defenses or intelligence failures. Ambassador Zix Tar, whose translucent body now pulsed with anxious red lights, turned toward the Earth delegation. You humans, your species has survived numerous conflicts. Have you encountered anything resembling the Hive? All eyes in the chamber turned to Mitchell. He stood slowly. No, Ambassador, we haven't. But I would like to understand more about the threat. These energy weapons that proved ineffective, they're the same ones you showed us in our last meeting, the ones that can cut through asteroids? Marixian nodded, her yellow eyes fixed on Mitchell. The Hive has somehow developed an immunity to all energy-based weapons. Their organic ships absorb or reflect even our most powerful beams. Mitchell glanced at Warren, who gave a slight nod. Perhaps, Mitchell said carefully, the Council would benefit from a different approach. What do you mean? Asked the crystalline being who had mocked Earth's lasers 6 months earlier. Dr. Patel stood up beside Mitchell. The Hive's immunity to energy weapons is irrelevant if the attack is physical rather than energetic. Our railguns, tungsten rods, and kinetic impactors don't rely on the energy transfer mechanisms your weapons use. Primitive weapons against an advanced psychic species? Scoffed General Krax of the Taurian fleet, though with less conviction than before. The massive bull-like alien shifted uncomfortably on his platform. Captain Denise Foster, Earth's tactical expert, who had remained silent during the previous meeting, now stepped forward. Tell me, General Krax, how long has the Council been using? Primarily energy-based weapons? Nearly 15,000 years, the Taurian rumbled. And in those 15,000 years, has the Hive had time to evolve specific defenses against those energy weapons? Krax's four nostrils flared with irritation. Obviously, Foster smiled thinly. Has the Hive ever faced weapons like ours? Weapons that transfer energy through physical impact rather than beams or waves? A thoughtful silence fell over the chamber. Sometimes the oldest solutions work when the newest fail, Foster continued. The Hive evolved defenses against the weapons you've been using for millennia. They've never encountered humanity's approach to warfare. Marixian's eyes shifted to a curious purple. Are you suggesting we use Earth weapons against the Hive? Admiral Warren stepped forward. High Counselor, Earth proposes a joint defensive operation. Our ships can provide support to your forces at a location of your choosing. Let us demonstrate our capabilities against this common enemy. The Council members exchanged glances. Mitchell could almost read their thoughts. Was accepting help from a primitive species worth the embarrassment? Was human technology really worth considering when it had been laughed at so recently? A tall, elderly alien with skin like bark rose from the highest tier. Mitchell recognized him as Elder Zan of the Arboreal Collective, one of the founding races of the Council. I have lived through 2 Hive incursions, Zan said, his voice like rustling leaves. In both cases, our technological superiority meant nothing. The Hive adapts, it overcomes. It has had 15 millennia to develop defenses against our weapons. Perhaps. He paused, his wooden face creaking as he formed an expression Mitchell couldn't interpret. Perhaps what we need is something the Hive has never encountered before. One by one, other Council members nodded in reluctant agreement. Marixian's eyes shifted to a determined green. The Council accepts Earth's proposal. We will permit a human defensive force to protect Proxima II, a mining colony of great strategic importance. If your weapons prove effective, we will discuss further cooperation. As the emergency session ended, Mitchell and his team huddled together in a corner of the chamber. They're still underestimating us, Foster whispered. They think we're offering a few ships with outdated guns. Admiral Warren's eyes gleamed. Good. The Hive won't be the only ones surprised when they see what humanity can really do. Mitchell nodded grimly. Operation Sledgehammer is a go. Let's show the galaxy what those primitive weapons can do. Back on Earth, factories that had been working in secret for 6 months increased production to full capacity. Ships were loaded with special ammunition designed specifically for this moment, the moment when humanity would prove its worth to the galaxy or die trying. 3 weeks after the Emergency Council meeting, 50 Earth vessels arrived at Proxima II. The mining colony was home to 30,000 Council citizens, mostly workers who extracted rare minerals from the planet's crust. More importantly, it produced 80% of the special crystals used in Council communication systems. From the bridge of the EDF Intrepid, Admiral Warren watched as his fleet moved into defensive positions around the planet. Earth ships looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the Council races. Where alien ships were sleek and streamlined, human vessels were bulky, angular, and covered in what appeared to be extra armor plating. Most notably, they bristled with what looked like large gun barrels and missile tubes, a stark contrast to the smooth hulls of energy weapon ships. Council liaison vessel approaching, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Ryan Campbell from the tactical station. Warren straightened his uniform. On screen, the view screen showed a gleaming silver ship shaped like a teardrop. It moved with impossible grace, seeming to flow rather than fly. They're hailing us, Campbell said. Accept the transmission. The screen changed to show a Taurian officer. The bull-like alien wore an elaborate uniform covered in symbols that probably indicated high rank. I am Commander Vex Corps of the Taurian Defense Fleet, the alien said, his translated voice deep and rumbling. I have been assigned as liaison between Council forces and your flotilla. Warren noted the slight pause. Even now, facing a common enemy, the Council races couldn't quite hide their sense of superiority. Admiral Frank Warren, Earth Defense Force, we appreciate the welcome, Commander. Vex-Corps' 4 nostrils flared slightly. I have studied the deployment plan your Captain Foster transmitted. Your positioning leaves you vulnerable to flanking maneuvers. On the bridge beside Warren, Captain Foster smiled. We're counting on it, Commander. The Taurian's eyes narrowed in confusion, but he continued. The Council Defense Fleet has taken up primary positions in the orbital lanes. Your ships will serve as secondary support. Warren nodded politely. As agreed. My ships will follow your lead until enemy contact is made. Very well. Vex-Corps didn't bother hiding his relief. Let us hope the Hive chooses a different target. The transmission ended. He doesn't think much of our chances, Campbell observed. Good, Warren replied. Neither will the Hive. Foster turned to a digital display showing their fleet formation. All ships report ready for Operation Sledgehammer, Admiral. Weapon systems are charged and loaded with special munitions. In the science lab aboard the EDF Discovery, Dr. Nancy Rivera monitored sensor data streaming in from Council defense platforms. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, she had spent the last 3 weeks studying every scrap of information the Council had shared about the Hive. Dr. Rivera, a voice called from the doorway. She turned to see Dr. Patel entering the lab. Any updates on the Hive's biological structure? Patel asked. Rivera gestured to complex molecular diagrams on her screen. They're fascinating. Silicon-based, as we knew, but with a cellular structure unlike anything we've seen. Their bodies can conduct and manipulate energy fields naturally, which explains their immunity to energy weapons, Patel mused. Exactly. Energy beams are either absorbed or redirected through their biological systems. Rivera pointed to another diagram. But their physical structure isn't particularly dense or strong. They evolved to handle energy, not kinetic impacts. Patel smiled. Like a creature that can swallow fire but can't take a punch. Precisely. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Both scientists rushed to the nearest view screen as the red alert message flashed. Hive vessels detected. On the bridge of the AO, Intrepid, Warren watched as 16 organic-looking ships emerged from what the Council called subspace, a dimensional realm humans had only begun to understand. Hive fleet confirmed, Campbell reported, his voice steady despite the tension. 16 vessels approaching at high speed. The view screen showed Council ships moving to intercept. Their weapons fired, dazzling beams of light and strange distortions, in space that Warren recognized as gravitational weapons. The energy beams struck the Hive ships and seemed to be absorbed into their hulls. The gravitational attacks caused minor distortions in their formation, but little actual damage. Council primary line is engaging, Foster reported. As expected, their weapons are proving ineffective. Warren watched grimly as 3 Council cruisers suddenly veered off course, their crews presumably overcome by the Hive's psychic assault. One crashed into another, creating a brilliant explosion. Council defense line is breaking, Campbell said. Warren stood. Signal all Earth vessels. Prepare to execute Operation Sledgehammer on my mark. Foster moved to the weapons control station. All ships acknowledge railguns charged, missile tubes loaded with tungsten fragmentation warheads. Warren took a deep breath. Humanity's moment had arrived. EDF fleet, you are authorized to engage. Foster pressed the firing control. Railgun 1, fire. The Intrepid shuddered slightly as its main railgun discharged. A 20-kilogram tungsten rod, accelerated to 15 kilometers per second, crossed the space between the Intrepid and the lead Hive ship in less than 3 seconds. On the view screen, Warren watched as the rod slammed into the organic hull of the Hive vessel. No energy barrier stopped it. No psychic power deflected it. The sheer kinetic force tore through the ship's structure, leaving a massive hole from one side to the other. The Hive ship shuddered, then ruptured spectacularly. A cheer went up on the bridge. Direct hit, Campbell exclaimed. Target neutralized. Warren allowed himself a small smile. All ships execute Operation Sledgehammer. Throughout the human fleet, railguns fired in sequence. Missile tubes launched specially designed warheads. Each Earthship targeted a specific hive vessel with overwhelming firepower. From the EDF Valiant, Lieutenant Doug Harris watched in grim satisfaction as the hypervelocity penetrators did exactly what Earth scientists had predicted. The specially designed ammunition was simple in concept but devastating in execution. Solid metal rods that relied on sheer mass and speed rather than explosive force. Target neutralized, he reported as another hive ship disintegrated. In the science vessel, EDF Discovery, Dr. Rivera confirmed what their sensors were showing. The hive's psychic barriers are calibrated to dissipate energy, she reported to the bridge. They have minimal defense against momentum and physical impacts. The hive ships attempted to regroup. 3 turned toward the Earth vessels, probably recognizing the new threat. Strange pulses of energy emanated from them, psychic attacks meant to disable the human crews. Psychic attack detected, Campbell reported, his hand going to his temple. Warren felt it too, a strange pressure in his mind, like someone trying to open a door that was firmly locked. Cerebral shielding holding, Foster reported with relief. Another innovation the Council had dismissed. Simple neural dampeners that disrupted the hive's ability to control human minds. The battle continued for 27 minutes. The hive, accustomed to fighting enemies with energy weapons, had no effective strategy against kinetic projectiles. Their organic hulls, evolved to absorb and redirect energy, tore under the impact of solid metal rods moving at hypersonic speeds. Warren watched as the last hive ship attempted to flee back into subspace. Before it could escape, 3 railgun projectiles struck it simultaneously. The ship came apart in a spray of silicon-based organic material. All hive vessels destroyed or neutralized, Admiral, Foster reported, a note of pride in her voice. Warren looked at the tactical display. Casualties? We lost the Courage, the Defiant, and the Relentless, Campbell reported solemnly. 27 crew confirmed dead, 42 injured. Warren closed his eyes briefly in respect for the fallen. And the Council ships? 17. Destroyed or disabled. Estimated casualties in the hundreds. The bridge fell silent. Then the communications officer spoke up. Admiral, we're being hailed by every Council vessel at once. Warren straightened his uniform again. On screen. The view screen showed Commander Vex Corps. The Taurian's expression was unreadable to human eyes, but his posture had changed. The arrogance was gone. Admiral Warren, Vex Corps said, his translated voice subdued. Your weapon, they were effective. Warren nodded. They served their purpose, Commander. The Council fleet extends its gratitude, Vex Corps continued, sounding as if the words were difficult to say. Proxima 2 is secure because of your actions today. After the transmission ended, Foster turned to Warren. That's probably the closest thing to a thank you we'll get. Warren smiled. It's a start. As repair crews worked to fix damage to the Earth ships, a message arrived from Centauri Prime. The Galactic Council had called another emergency session. This time to discuss a formal defensive alliance with humanity. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council shone with light from 1,000 floating orbs. Gold and silver decorations lined the walls, celebrating the recent victory at Proxima 2. The hall was packed with representatives from all 17 council races, plus a much larger human delegation than before. Commander Mitchell, now wearing the insignia of a captain, stood tall as he walked down the central aisle with Admiral Warren and Dr. Patel. Unlike their first visit, no one laughed or whispered as they passed. Instead, many council members nodded respectfully or made gestures that Mitchell had learned were signs of admiration. Quite a different reception this time, Mitchell whispered to Warren. The Admiral's face remained serious. Nothing earns respect, like saving lives. High Counselor Marixian, her skin now a healthy silver again and her eyes a warm, welcoming green, called the session to order. Today we gather to honor those who defended Proxima 2 and to welcome new friends to our alliance. The formal part of the ceremony took nearly an hour. Awards were given to council ship captains who had fought bravely. Moments of silence were observed for those lost in battle. Finally, Marixian turned her attention to the humans. 3 weeks ago, in this very chamber, Earth offered assistance against an enemy that had defeated our most advanced weapons. Some doubted their offer. Her eyes swept the room, lingering on those who had been most vocal in mocking human technology. Today, we acknowledge our error and celebrate their success. Admiral Warren was invited to speak. He stepped onto the central platform, his voice steady and clear. The people of Earth thank the Council for this recognition. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, to learn and grow alongside other intelligent species. We did not expect to find ourselves in battle so soon, but we are proud to have played a part in defending Proxima 2. Applause, or various species equivalents of applause, filled the chamber. After the ceremony, Mitchell found himself surrounded by curious council members eager to learn about Earth's unique approach to warfare. "Is it true your ships don't use energy shielding at all?" asked a small fuzzy being with large eyes. "We use some energy shielding," Mitchell explained, "but we rely more on physical armor and point defense systems." "Fascinating primitive approach," said the being, then quickly added, "I mean unique approach." Mitchell smiled. Old habits died hard. Later that day, the human delegation was invited to a more private meeting with the Council's high command. In a secure chamber deep within the station, Admiral Warren and his team sat across from the military leaders of the most powerful Council races. Marixian spoke first. "The Battle of Proxima 2 has shown us that the Hive can be defeated. Our scientists are already studying the remains of their ships to understand their vulnerabilities better." "And what have they found?" asked Dr. Patel, Elder Zan of the Arboreal. Collective answered, his wooden face creaking as he spoke. "They have confirmed what your Dr. Rivera discovered. The Hive evolved specific defenses against energy weapons, but remained vulnerable to physical impacts." "A simple oversight," said General Krax, the Taurian who had scoffed at human weapons, in the emergency meeting. "But one that nearly cost us everything." "Not an oversight," Dr. Patel corrected gently. "An evolutionary path. The Hive adapted to the threats they faced most often." "As did we," Marixian admitted. "For 15,000 years, the Council has focused on energy weapons, making them more powerful, more efficient. We never considered returning to physical projectiles because they seemed outdated." Mitchell nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. It means, don't rely on a single approach or strategy," interrupted Ambassador Zixtar, surprising everyone. The translucent being's tentacles rippled with blue and green lights. "We have a similar saying. I should have remembered it when we first saw your weapons." Marixian placed a data crystal on the table. It projected complex schematics into the air between them. "The Council formally recognizes Earth's contribution to galactic security and proposes a joint defense initiative with humanity, taking a leading role in developing new weapon systems that combine our different approaches." Warren studied the schematics with interest. "You want to add railguns to your ships?" "And more," Zan said. "We want to learn from each other. Your physical weapons and our energy technology, working together. Neither approach alone is perfect, but combined, the Hive won't be able to adapt to both simultaneously," Patel finished, excitement in her voice. She was already seeing the possibilities. Warren leaned forward. "Earth is open to this partnership, with conditions. No more talk of disarmament. Humanity joins as equals, not subordinates." Marixian's eyes shifted to a serious blue. "Agreed. The Galactic Security Pact will be a partnership of equals." After a moment of silence, every leader around the table nodded in agreement. The Council chamber's approval was unanimous. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to Earth with the new alliance agreement, Captain Foster found herself approached by Ambassador Zixtar in a quiet corner of the station's observation deck. "Captain Foster." The ambassador's translucent body pulsed with soft colors. "I wish to offer a personal apology." Foster raised an eyebrow. "For what, Ambassador?" "For my behavior during your first presentation. I was arrogant." "You weren't the only one," Foster replied with a smile. No, but I was perhaps the loudest. The ambassador's lights dimmed slightly, and what Foster had learned was embarrassment. Your weapons were never primitive. We failed to understand that different evolutionary paths lead to different solutions. Foster looked out at the stars. Humans have a complicated history with weapons, Ambassador. We've nearly destroyed ourselves several times with them. Yet you survived. We adapted. We learned, sometimes the hard way. The ambassador's lights shifted to a curious yellow. There is something I don't understand. You could have let us fight the hive alone. After our treatment of your delegation, many species would have. Foster smiled. That's not who we are, or at least, not who we're trying to be. On the other side of the observation deck, Lieutenant Harris was explaining Earth idioms to a group of young council officers. It's a human saying, he told them with a grin. Don't bring an energy weapon to a kinetic fight. The aliens looked confused, then burst into their various forms of laughter as they understood the joke. Back on Earth, factories were already retooling to produce the new hybrid weapons developed under the Security Pact. Ships were being modified to incorporate both human kinetic systems and Council energy technology. Training programs welcomed alien officers to Earth while human crews prepared to serve on Council vessels. In the darkness at the edge of known space, the remaining hive ships retreated deeper into the void. Their collective consciousness processed the new threat humanity represented, a species whose approach to warfare had evolved along such different lines that the hive's usual defenses were useless. For the first time in millennia, the hive felt fear. They would need to adapt again, to evolve new defenses against both energy and kinetic weapons simultaneously. It would take time the hive might not have now that humanity had joined the galactic community. In her private chambers, high deep, Councillor Marixian studied reports of increased cooperation between council races and humans. Engineers from 7 different species were working together on new defensive systems. Scientists were sharing knowledge previously kept secret. Even cultural exchanges were flourishing. She smiled as her eyes shifted to a satisfied purple. The Galactic Council had learned a crucial lesson. In the vastness of space, arrogance was a luxury no one could afford. And humanity had earned something even more valuable than respect. They had earned genuine alliance from their friends and fear from their enemies. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species from the small blue planet who turned their violent past into the very strength that might save them all. End of outline.